All right, today we're diving into something really powerful, something deeply personal. What happens to our creative spark after something traumatic happens? We're going to look at that journey from total silence all the way back to finding your voice again. Let's get into it.
So this is it. This is the big question. For so many of us, creativity isn't just a hobby, right? It's who we are. But what happens when some huge upheaval, a loss, a disaster, a betrayal, doesn't just hurt you, but completely snuffs out that inner voice? And that leads us to this fascinating paradox. Trauma, it turns out, is a total double-edged sword. Think of your mind as a fragile forge. That intense emotional heat can either spark something incredibly new and powerful, or it can just extinguish the flame completely, leaving you feeling like a shadow of yourself. So what makes the difference? Well, it all seems to boil down to one single, incredibly difficult struggle. The path forward, whether it leads you back to creating or just to healing, depends on this one internal battle, confronting reality head-on, without all the filters our minds put up to protect us. So let's talk about that darker path first, when the shadow really takes hold. For some people, the very thing that fueled their inspiration, their deep well of emotions, suddenly becomes this source of overwhelming pain. And when that happens, the shutdown can be absolutely brutal and incredibly fast. I mean, listen to this quote from Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. It's just heartbreaking. After he got treatment for his mental health struggles, he said that the very demons that drove his genius were just gone. It perfectly captures this terrifying trade-off some people face, your well-being or your creative fire. And that feeling Brian Wilson described, well, there's a name for it. The American Psychological Association calls it disrupted cognitive flexibility. It's a fancy term, but what it basically means is that trauma can build a thick wall of unprocessed pain inside your head, and inspiration, well, it just can't get through. And we need to be really clear about something. This is not just a creative block. Not even close. A block is like a hurdle you can eventually get over. What we're talking about here is a full-blown identity crisis. The source material calls it a virtual death knell, a feeling that a core part of you has literally been cut off. So who does this actually affect? It's not just famous artists. We see it in places like Reddit's r/artist lounge, where one user felt they lost an entire decade of their work. It happened to the incredible musician Daniel Johnston, whose work just faded as his struggles grew. And it can even hit a financial executive whose intuition, their own form of creativity, is just paralyzed after a huge market crash. It can happen to anyone. But, and this is a big but, that silence does not have to be the end of the story. So now let's look at the paths back. How do people reclaim that part of themselves? Turns out these journeys are as unique as the people who walk them. The APA points to a few different therapies, and they all have this one powerful thing in common. Approaches like EMDR or expressive arts therapy focus on healing the trauma first, without any pressure at all to create something. By taking that expectation away, they create a space where creativity can just bubble up again, naturally, when it's ready. And remember that executive we talked about? Well, for them, the path back might look less like an art class and more like this. It's a structured, careful re-entry. First, just getting a routine back. Then, slowly, reintroducing small, calculated risks. And finally, step by step, rebuilding that professional confidence. It's a very deliberate kind of reclamation. Now, we have to be honest here. There's a sobering reality to all of this. For some people, like the brilliant and raw songwriter Daniel Johnston, that journey of healing is, well, it's just never quite complete. Recovery isn't always a straight line to a happy ending. But then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have someone like Frida Kahlo. She is maybe the ultimate example. She didn't just recover from her pain, she took it and she wove it directly into the fabric of her art, creating this incredibly powerful, timeless legacy. And what happened with Frida is a perfect illustration of this amazing concept from psychology called post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that after surviving something terrible, some people don't just bounce back to who they were. They can actually bounce forward, experiencing these profound positive changes and finding a whole new meaning in life. Okay, so that sounds incredible, right? But how does it actually happen? What's the internal work you have to do to rebuild that creative strength from the inside out? Let's break down some of the steps. The research points to a few key things. It really starts with letting yourself be completely vulnerable. After that, it's about playful, no-pressure experimenting. We're talking doodling, writing one sentence, anything just for you. Finding a community to support you is huge, but maybe the most important key is accepting that your path is yours. There's just no one-size-fits-all solution here. And that part about community, you really can't overstate how critical that is. This is why initiatives like Healing Through Creativity are so important. They create these judgment-free zones where people can come together and explore, making that whole journey feel a lot less lonely. And this all brings us to the real heart of it. The whole thing is about a massive shift in perspective. It's about learning to reframe that wound, that scar, not as the end of your story, but as the beginning of a brand new one. Ultimately, after everything else, it all comes back to this. The hardest, the most courageous battle is the one that happens inside you. It's that individual climb to face what happened, to see reality for what it is, without all those defenses our minds throw up. I want to leave you with this one line because I think it just says it all so beautifully. The wound embraced becomes the story's heart, not its end. It means that our deepest pains, if we can find the courage to face them, can actually become our greatest sources of strength.
So, look, if you have ever felt that creative silence, just remember this. It might not be an ending. It might just be a pause. And in that silence, a new voice is often just waiting to be found. The only real question is, what will yours say?